DRS, but we have more speed. 3 wide, it's going to be into the right-hander on the final lap of this Grand Prix. We are wheel to wheel for the first time with our brand new teammate of Daniel Ricciardo on the final lap, still 3 wide. Now Leclerc is going to send one up the inside into the corner, and now contact. We're crashing with Leclerc into the barrier. Leclerc's out of the Grand Prix. Closing in on my rear diffuser. He's going to look up the inside of the right side down towards turn 1, and he's going to actually turn in on us. And Verstappen's cleaned us out, and we're out. Some pressure on Verstappen as we head down into turn 1. We've been completely cleaned out, and it's from Max Verstappen again, who's out of the Grand Prix. Verstappen's out. He locked up into turn 1. Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of our F1 22 driver career mode here on the channel. You've seen it this season so far. It has been, well, up and down. We've had our clashes recently with Max Verstappen, and now we have, well, a prestigious event here today. It's the Monaco Grand Prix. We have 20 points on the board coming into this episode. We have 2 DNFs. It says 1, but do remember we got wrecked at the end in China from Max Verstappen, who is at the top of the board in the World Drivers' Championship currently now, as we were here in the Monaco area ready to go racing, or at least get some practice under our belt here in free practice 1 with high hopes as well. The McLaren has been continuing to improve. This team has been making some good upgrades, and we're getting closer to the top of the grid. I'm not sure if you can hear it in the background, any background noise or not, but there is currently the street beside me getting torn completely apart and redone. So if you can hear that, I do apologize, but I'm not quite sure if you can or not. But here we are in free practice 1 as we were getting underway, and of course just trying to find a comfort zone. I'm not necessarily looking for speed in practice in Monaco. I'm looking for comfort. You know who found discomfort? Zhou Guanyu crashed in free practice 1 and was out literally on my first lap on the track, so it was day over for Zhou Guanyu very, very quickly now, as it was an okay practice session for myself right up till the end. When I did that, I took the front wing right off the car, but overall, you know, if I'm not making mistakes, I was pretty happy. We were P3 and P4 very close together between myself and Ricciardo, as things are looking good. We really do look like we have a lot of speed in this McLaren this weekend, like a potential top 5 for both of us, for myself and Ricciardo. And as you guys know, qualifying is always the most important aspect of Monaco, and we, you know, now shift our focus into qualifying here into Q1, and Q1 shouldn't really be that complicated to get through. And you can see myself coming through the first sector now, just really trying to put in a decent lap. I really wasn't pushing too hard in these opening moments because I didn't want to risk crashing the car out. So we crossed the line. We actually went fastest of anybody here. And then Leclerc changes in. I would run a second lap, find about 0.3 of a second, and that puts us back up to P2, and we would end up P10. Ricciardo P6. So Ricciardo showing good pace. I think we have better pace than P10, but like I said, we didn't really show it there as we now start Q2, our first lap in this session now, as we were looking pretty good throughout really the whole lap. Honestly, this car felt really hooked up, and we crossed the line again. We briefly went fastest, but we would have to make a second lap again later on in the session, and we were down to second place. That was it. We were still in the mix, putting up a really good lap, but our teammate of Daniel Ricciardo, completely different scenario. He had a terrible first lap. He was outside of the top 10, and he's trying to wrap up his second lap, and you can see he would not make it. I aborted my lap because it was a terrible start. Ricciardo is out. Shockingly, Perez as well is out. Sergio Perez is going to miss Q3, so we jump through into Q3, and we have a very interesting circumstance here. Lando Norris in the Aston Martin is in Q3, while his teammate of Lance Stroll is way behind. But this is my first lap here in Q3, just trying to get a baseline lap, and then of course work off of that for the final attempt here in Q3. And we're going to open that rear wing there and head down this front straightaway. And actually, I did have a bit of wing damage. I did tap the wall, but we still end up P2. Last lap, however, we were down to 5th place, looking for a little bit more pace. 5th place, you know, I would like to start in the top 3 if we could, as we head through the right-hander, ending sector 1, about half a tenth of a second improvement, close to a full 10th here as we go down into the hairpin. I gave up quite a bit of time on entry, but gain even more on exit now as we continue to try and track in the right direction. Now, once again, half a tenth to the good, then a full 10th. It kind of keeps swaying back and forth. It would do the same right up till the final few corners. The penultimate turn back into the red. Such a good exit, though. 2.5 tenths as well as we exit the final corner. It's going to go closer to 0.3 of a second better. It well past the 0.3 mark. We're going to cross the line. It's P3 in Monaco. A fantastic qualifying qualifying effort here, our best qualifying effort to date as a Formula 1 driver in our second season, and we're going to see who is going to be on pole. It's George Russell, but look at this. It's a Mercedes, Aston Martin, McLaren, Ferrari, the Haas pair of Magnussen and Schumacher in the top 6, Verstappen all the way down in 7th, Sainz, Ocon, and Hamilton way off. What a weird top 10 compared to what we usually see. It's spicy. Let's go to the grid.
A proper road race, and in the true meaning of the word. That's how Mr. Monaco, the late great Graham Hill, once described this iconic event. The cars we drive have come a long way in the intervening half-century, but still we race on those same public roads beside the Mediterranean. There's no victory more coveted than that of the Monaco Grand Prix. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, and Golden Boy completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher and Verstappen, Sainz, Ocon, Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. Russell, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo and Perez. Albon, Joe, Nicholas Latifi and Yuki Tsunoda. Schwartzman and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
You saw grid penalties for George Russell. We are onto the front row, medium to hard compound tire. As usual, very straightforward, one stop race unless I hit something. So let's get ready.
The formation lap gets underway then, and it's going to be interesting today to see how the dry conditions could affect the lifespan of the tyres. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can, and they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, and failing that, within the points.
Incredible car you guys have given me this weekend. Let's keep it safe, let's keep it clean, and I'll do my best to, get ourselves a win here today. Our best ever starting position in Formula 1 now, and it's Lando Norris in the McLaren, who's starting from pole position. Didn't qualify on pole. That was George Russell with the grid penalty, so he's a little bit further down the order. But here we are, lined up on that front row as we got as well Charles Leclerc along our right side. Lance Stroll, he's going to be the Aston Martin at the back of the field while his teammate is at the very front as we are ready to go racing. An opportunity to take the lead into turn 1. Hopefully here. Our starts haven't been great in this game, and let's see if it's going to be any better or worse. We're underway, and it's not a great start, but it's not a terrible one. We're going to be side by side. Well, that's Kevin Magnussen. Or no, Schumacher sends it up my inside. Sorry, that is. But we stay ahead briefly now. We settle in behind the Ferrari of Leclerc, and you can see everybody fanning out through these opening corners now in Monaco, trying to keep things clean. But overall, honestly, a lot better of a start than I was anticipating, because more often than not, I lose 2, 3, 4 spots sometimes on the start. There's George Russell up the inside of Lewis Hamilton, and it looks like Hamilton's actually going to give up the position to Russell. He's going to settle in behind him, so Hamilton not wanting to fight right off the bat here with his British teammate. Now, as you can see, already it looks like one of the Alpines a little bit off the pace there, as there's a bit of a gap between them and the cars in front. That was Esteban Ocon, actually in front of his teammate of Fernando Alonso. Norris leads the way over Leclerc and myself here now, but honestly, I consider this a pretty good success, and I think if we play our cards right, we have a good shot here today because we know the Aston Martin is quite simply not quick enough to be able to drive away from a Ferrari or a McLaren. So if we can find a way to use strategy to get out in front of that Aston Martin, I think we can win this race because we won't need the pace. It's so hard to pass here, as we do set the fastest lap actually at the end of lap 2. But Leclerc, even though he's way faster than an Aston Martin, it's Monaco. He's not going to be able to pass him. So if we can find a way to leapfrog these two drivers, we very well could win this race here in Monaco. This was really a perfect case scenario, having a slower car in the R&D here in front of the grid in, of all places, Monaco. But what an order we have with Lando Norris in the Aston Martin. Then you have the Haas cars. There's Perez. Lap 3 this was. He sent one up the inside of Ricciardo. He's on the move. Ricciardo down to P13. That was a very ambitious send, but you know what? More credit to him. It worked. Now, as you can see myself still lap 7 behind Leclerc. It was so hard to actually, you know, put the fight to Leclerc because I could get close to him in the corners, but by the time I got down to the next corner, he was long gone. Look at the track map. That Alpine of Ocon, I mentioned on that one, it looked like he was lacking pace. Well, look at the absolute massive gap here. Again, lap 9, this is Daniel Ricciardo sending one up the inside of Perez, repaying the favor then. He was alongside Hamilton, but he would settle in behind. But now look at the gap, it gets even larger. And I went and looked in the replay, and I didn't see, you know, any moments where Ocon would have gotten wing damage or anything. He was just quite simply slower. Now, on lap 12, if you look at the track map again, you will notice the Alpines are suddenly starting to pull away from the Mercedes cars. So all of a sudden, they had actually found pace, Ocon did, and that was bringing Alonso with him. And then Russell was really struggling on pace all of a sudden. It almost felt like a bug in the game that was happening, but you can see myself still settling in. I was actually losing time briefly to Leclerc and Norris, but by the time we come through to lap 15, we had kind of closed that gap back up and gotten to the rear diffuser, rear wing of Charles Leclerc in his home Grand Prix. Can he finally win in his home Grand Prix? He's got a prime opportunity now. As you can see, this is lap 15. George Russell with a lockup right there, nearly into the barrier and out of the race, but fortunately for him, he keeps it out of it now. Pit window open as we come through to lap 17. So we get a message briefly from Mark.
Pace is great. We are going to do an extra lap and attempt an overcut here. Give it all you got.
You hear it right there. So we're going to be doing an extra lap, trying to overcut Norris and Leclerc because we think we can find more time by staying out. And here they come. And then at lap 17, Norris followed by Leclerc, as well as Kevin Magnussen is going to head into the pits. So myself, Schumacher, Sainz, we're all going to stay out on the track. So now it's crucial for me to put in, you know, quite simply, the best lap that I can possibly put in here, as we will be boxing at the end of lap 18. But we're hoping that because of all those cars pitting together, it would have slowed them down, although there wasn't many because of the separation in the grid. But we come through into the pits here at the end of lap 18, and it was an okay lap. It wasn't spectacular. Schumacher was still able to stay within reach of me, so I knew it wasn't a fantastic lap. But we come in, put on that hard compound tire. Let's see what the situation's going to be. Have we used this overcut strategy to leapfrog both Leclerc? Actually, look at the track map. Leclerc is in front of Norris now, so Norris has dropped the position. It's looking pretty good as we head down into turn 1. As long as we can exit this first turn ahead, which we do, Leclerc is right there. But now we've got the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, looking for our first win in Formula 1. What a moment of magic it would be if our first win in Formula 1 came at Monaco. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. I don't know, would that be a really good thing or not? Because it's like, you can't pass at Monaco, because I knew, now that I'm leading this Grand Prix, as long as I don't make a big error like hit the barrier and take the wing off or crash the car, then I'm fine. Speaking of crashing, well, there wasn't a crash, but Yuki Tsunoda pulling off the circuit here on lap 20. He was out of the session due to a mechanical failure. I was setting an absolute flyer of a lap here once these hard tires kind of got up to temperature, and you can see me just, I mean, full beans through this third sector, and we actually set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. However, although I'm doing that, Leclerc is still stalking me. He is not losing connection whatsoever. So this is how I knew, you know, it's not going to be the easiest task in the world. I got to make sure I keep it mistake-free, as I actually briefly tapped the barrier right there on the left side. Fortunately, no damage done on lap 24 as we are closing in on the final 10 laps in Monaco. We should have had a win potentially in China. It didn't work out. We could have potentially, you know, had a podium last episode in Miami. It didn't work out. Both times it didn't work out. It was Max Verstappen crashing us now as we come through to lap 25. And now another mistake. This is like the third mistake in the last few laps that I had made. And then watch this as we come through the right-hander towards the end of sector 1. A huge moment of oversteer.
All right, cool down. All you have to do is stay in front. He won't be able to pass you.
Mark, well, he knows the situation and tells me to cool it down, and that was what I need right there, a moment like that to kind of hit the reset button and be like, okay, I don't need to be pushing that hard. I don't need to push at all. We're leading the Grand Prix. You're not going to pass me. I only have to focus on 2 straightaways and just, you know, use overtake. George Russell's terrible day continues. I had lapped George Russell. I don't know exactly what was going on with that Mercedes, but he was terrible. Now, for the late race update, though, 10 laps remain in Monaco. Leclerc chases us in 2nd place. Lando Norris still in position for a podium. It hasn't quite worked out the way he would hoped, but still absolutely dominating his teammate Schumacher. And the Haas in 4th, Verstappen, Sainz, Magnussen, Ocon, and Alonso. And as well, to round out the top 10, Lewis Hamilton, who really just hasn't gone anywhere today. He qualified P10, and he's just been in that area. Perez is well outside of the points right now. So, although Max Verstappen, fresh off of a DNF after crashing me in Miami, he's not having a great day in Monaco in P5, and it looks like we're going to see the exact same trend as Season 1. If you guys remember, Red Bull Racing won the first 5 Grand Prix and then lost their first in Monaco, and the rest is history. We watched them crumble as the season went on and blow the Drivers' Championship away for Verstappen and the Constructors' Championship away to Ferrari. So, it's going to be interesting because they've won the first 5 Grand Prix this season, and now odds are very much stacked against them to win this Grand Prix here in, well, it looks like it's going to be a repeat of last season. Now, lap 34, still, the gap to Leclerc hasn't increased at all. I knew he had a faster car than me, but the fact that we were able to do the overcut and him being maybe slowed up in the pits potentially by the Aston Martin or whatever it might have been, it's allowed us to, you know, get that position here as we have 2 to go coming to the final lap in the Monaco Grand Prix. A big moment right there, but we keep it clean down into turn 1, hopefully, and don't hit anything. That's the goal. As, you know, I didn't really push for much in this second and final run, just hoping that Mark wasn't going to come over the radio and tell me, hey, there's an issue with the car or something. But here we are in what has been a season and 6 races now into this career mode. Been looking for our first win. We came into Formula 1 as a rookie with the Haas F1 team. We had our ups and downs early in the season, and we struggled to beat our teammate of Mick Schumacher early on in that season, and things weren't necessarily looking fantastic for us, you know, to say the least. But then we have just kind of gotten comfortable in Formula 1, figured it out. We scored a podium late last season in Formula 1, which was absolutely awesome. And then, of course, we got this ride with McLaren. It was originally looking like we were going to end up at Red Bull. Things fell through there, and, well, I don't think we'll have a chance to race for Red Bull anytime soon with the relationship we have now with their drivers of Max Verstappen. But it's worked out with McLaren. We used the overcut strategy to potentially get us in front. It was a risk, but it was a risk well worth the reward, because we exit the final turn, a little bit of oversteer, but it doesn't matter. We are a Formula 1 winner in Monaco.
Absolutely awesome. Just amazing, eh? Well done.
I didn't think this was going to be the place we would do it, but here we are, driver of the day as well. I mean, absolutely incredible, to say the least here. And, you know, it was quite easy to hold on to the win in Monaco. Obviously, like I said, you can't pass here, and if you just keep the car on the racing line and you know, focus on 2 straightaways of maximum speed, you're going to be just fine. And there we are, celebrating our first win with the team. I mean, absolutely thrilling stuff here, as this car, it's getting better as the races go on. We have, in my opinion, had improvements basically every single Grand Prix in terms of pace, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Daniel Ricciardo at the top step of a podium here this season as well. As we've had our ups and downs to start this season, but now, and none of that matters, we are a Grand Prix winner, and specifically in Monaco, of all places, in a track that I have struggled to win at in past Formula 1 games. And here we are in our first win in this game, and it's at Monaco. It's absolutely awesome. The cards, you know, were dealt towards us quite favorably, as we saw the big gap between the Alpines and the group ahead, and that really helped us as well. I mean, there were so many things that just played into our favor, and we capitalized on it now. So we also get maximum points, 26 points due to the fastest lap of the Grand Prix for the first time in my career as well. Norris on the podium, which is awesome, and you can see the rest of the finishing order. Disappointing day for our teammate of Daniel Ricciardo. Perez as well, disappointing day. But here are the point standings. So we now are ahead of Ricciardo, up into 7th place with 46 points on on the board. Verstappen still out in front over Leclerc, 29 points behind, 31 behind for Perez. Red Bull 44 points ahead of Ferrari in the Constructors as we move up to 4th with McLaren. That's going to wrap it up for me. I'll see you guys in the next one. We are finally a winner in Formula 1. Have a great day, everybody.